Welcome to 7 Minutes of Heaven, the Bible study podcast where we dive into God's Word and find refreshment for our souls in just 7 minutes. I am your host, Mercy, and I'm so excited to have you here. If this is your first time joining us, a big welcome to you. This is your new home for impactful Bible study sessions. And to my regular listeners, you already know it's a blessing to have you back. Today's topic is From Eden to Exile, the roots of our brokenness and negative emotions. We are going to unpack the dramatic events of Genesis chapter 3, where the harmony of Eden is shattered by disobedience and humanity faces the consequences of turning away from God. Along the way, we will explore the tactics of temptations, the ripple effects of sin, and the incredible hope found in God's promise of redemption. By the end of this episode, I pray that you will somehow see, even in the moments of brokenness, God's grace and mercy remain steadfast, even in the midst of humanity's greatest failure. Let's get started by setting the scene. The Garden of Eden was a paradise crafted by God. It was filled with lush vegetation, vibrant flowers, and towering trees, each bearing fruit of every kind imaginable. In the center of the garden stood two significant trees, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God placed Adam in perfect haven to work and care for it. To Adam, God gave the command, "You're free to eat of any tree in the garden, but you must not eat the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat it, your life will certainly slip away." Together with his wife, the woman created from Adam's rib, they lived without shame, walking in harmony with their Creator. But among the garden's inhabitants was a serpent, a creature of cunning. It approached the woman with a question that will change the course of history. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. Eve gazed at the fruit. It was alluring, good for food, pleasing to the eyes, and filled with the promise of wisdom. She took some and ate it. Then she handed it to Adam, and he ate as well. In an instant, their eyes were opened. Shame filled them. They sewed fig leaves together and covered themselves. The lessons that we can draw from this is that certain tactics are as effective today as they were in the Garden of Eden. He mixes lies with the truth to make rebellion seem reasonable. He denies the consequences of sin and distorts God's character, suggesting that God is withholding something good, leading us to believe that we can find fulfillment apart from God. When Adam and Eve disobeyed, negative emotions surged in their hearts. Guilt, shame, and fear replaced innocence, replaced trust and peace. These emotions were merely reactions. They were symptoms of a deeper spiritual brokenness that was caused by sin. Let's observe the impact. First, we observe a broken relationship. But God called Adam, "Where are you?" God's question isn't because he doesn't know where Adam is, but because he wants Adam to acknowledge what has happened. Secondly, fear and shame enter the picture. I had you in the garden, and I was afraid I was uncovered, so I hid. Adam's response reveals how sin has distorted his relationship with God. What was once marked by trust is now marred by fear and guilt. Then, avoidance of responsibility also enters the picture. Who told you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? Instead of taking responsibility, Adam points the finger to Eve and indirectly to God himself. Eve's response also denies accountability, focusing on the serpent's role rather than her own choices. Sin introduced the tendency to externalize blame instead of owning up our personal decisions. Then we can also see the curse and consequences. God did not allow disobedience to go unpunished. God immediately delivered consequences for their actions, cursing the serpent, Eve, and Adam. Sin by nature brings separation from God. He drove them out and placed a cherubim and a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. Thus Adam and Eve began their lives outside the garden. God's character shows mercy. He covered them, an act of redemption, and covered their shame. Let's relate this to our lives. Negative emotions like guilt, shame, fear, and blame are not foreign to us. They stem from the same brokenness introduced in the Garden of Eden. We too often find ourselves retreating from His presence when we feel unworthy or overwhelmed by our failures. Guilt makes us feel unclean and unfit for God's love. It whispers that we are beyond redemption, that our mistakes define us. Shame convinces that not only have we done wrong, but our very identity is flawed and unlovable. Fear turns God into someone to avoid rather than someone to approach, and blame redirects responsibility, often at the cost of our relationships, leaving us more isolated than before. These emotions are heavy burdens, but they are also deceptive. They can distort our view of God, making Him seem punitive when in reality He is compassionate, forgiving, and eager to draw us closer to Him. We often try to fix ourselves, don't we? We use temporary solutions such as achievements, distractions, and self-help strategies to patch up the cracks in our souls. Our efforts will never be enough to heal the brokenness caused by sin. Here is a thought. Imagine a broken device in the hands of its manufacturer. The one who designed it knows how it is meant to function, where the damage is, and how to restore it. In the same way, our God knows our hearts and the depth of our pain. When we bring our brokenness to Him, He doesn't reject us, He repairs us. The reason we feel confusion and uncertainty is that we have lost our connection to these original instructions. When life feels broken, do not try to repair yourself. Return to the manufacturer. Let's yield to God's truth. When negative emotions threaten to overwhelm us, we must remember Satan lies. Recognize that guilt, fear, and shame and blame are tools that Satan uses to distance us from God. The weight of guilt, shame, blame, and fear is too heavy for us to carry. Jesus Himself said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Thank you for joining me today on the episode From Eden to Exile, the roots of our brokenness and negative emotions. Next Monday, we will explore the first family feud, how humanity began seeking God. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. Thank you for tuning into the 7 Minutes of Heaven. If you have been inspired by today's episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with friends who seek a deeper relationship with God. Until next time, keep your hearts guarded and your faith strong.